Well, very good afternoon. So today we will discuss about the service level standards which are used under cloud computing. So in the last previous three classes, we discussed about the infrastructure standards. Means like the yesterday's class which I have posted, where the virtualization standard to standardize virtualization, several companies have collaborated with each other and they have designed this OVF. Okay. And later on, before that, we discussed about the client level standards where the HTML, JavaScript has been used. And then, in the beginning, we have seen about the HTML standards where we use the HTTP, uh, the XMPP standards. So today we will mainly discuss about what are the standards which are applied at the service level. Means when we are going for the web service, what type of standards which are generally used. Okay, because when it is a case of web service, we are going to send the data from one place to another place. So what type of standards generally are being used? So first, what is this web service as defined by the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C? It is a software system designed to support interoperable machine-to-machine interaction over the internet network. Means here, machine to machine means two programs are going to talk to each other. Two programs are going to communicate with each other. Okay, using an API. So it is nothing but an web service is often an web APIs which are access to internet. So in the internet, what happens here is one program is going to talk to another program. So we need to follow a protocol. We need to know how to access a particular application. Means one application should know the signature of another application so that it can invoke and it is going to. mm, do rest of the operations. So this we have discussed already earlier. For example, if you are making some payment system, so when we are entering our credentials, like our card number and whatever the details which are being asked, that are actually through a secure connection. Those are being passed to our bank, and from bank they are being confirmed, and again we are going to get back on the screen. What is all this? What has happened here? One program is going to talk to another program. So these are all the web services. Actually the service, the APIs, the web APIs which are going to talk to each other over network. So under this, we generally talk, popular type of web services. We will discuss here what type of standards, because we are talking about the standards here. So we generally talk about the popular web services like the REST, SOAP, and JSON. Okay, so the representational state transfer, the simple object access protocol, and your JSON, that is JavaScript object notation. So when data means, first if we talk about the data, how the data is stored, data is actually served. When you want serve the data, it is stored, and number of mechanisms are used to serve the data. So two types of popular mechanisms are here. One is JSON and another one is XML. So both are actually the leading industry standards. So HTML and JavaScript are help to deliver and present the data. So the HTML and JavaScript are helping to serve the data when we are using the web services like JSON, as well as mm, JSON and XML. So JSON is a short form of JavaScript object notation. JSON is a short form of JavaScript object notation, and it is a lightweight computer data interchange format. So here it is a lightweight program which is used to interchange the data. It is used for transmitting structured data over network connection in a process called serialization. So the structured data means in a particular format, the data is going to transferred over the network connection in a process called serialization, and it is often used as an alternative for XML. So here, what happens here is, as a JSON is a subset of JavaScript, uh, it is considered to be a language independent format. So then it is because even though it is a subset of Even though JSON is a subset of JavaScript, we consider it as a language independent format, and a code for passing and generating JSON data is available for several programming languages. So we can use it in the several programming languages. Uh, 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 this JSON can be used in several languages for generating data. So this makes good replacement for XML, where JavaScript is involved with exchange of data like Ajax. So it is a good replacement for XML. So we will see here how when we are using XML, what will happen. So uh, uh, Yahoo actually began offering some of its web services in JSON, and Google also is using it in 2006. So JSON should be used instead of XML when JavaScript is sending and receiving the data. So when you are using JavaScript to send and receive the data, JSON is a better option. Why? Because if you are using XML in JavaScript, you have to write the scripts or use libraries to handle the document object model objects. So the DOM objects there. So you need to have to write the script and use the libraries to handle the DOM objects to extract the data you need. Means if you want to extract the data, if you want to send and receive the data, so you need to write a script here, script and use the libraries when you are using XML in JavaScript. Whereas in JSON, the object is already as an object, because the JSON produces an object which is already in the form of an object there. So no extra work is needed. Simply you can use them. This means because of this, the amount, the overhead over means the burden over the CPU has been reduced. Okay, so the amount of code you need to write by the programmers will be reduced here in case of when you're using JSON. So you can have an example here where the address of a particular person is been written. Okay, next, if you go for the XML, the XML is also a standard self-describing way of encoding text and data so that the content can be accessed with very little human interaction and exchanged across wide variety of hardware, operating system, and applications. So, what if you're using XML, the next web service standard? So it is a self-describing way of encoding the text. So it is a self-describing way of encoding the text and data, so that the content can be accessed with little human interaction. So with very less human interaction, the data can be accessed on a wide variety of means. It can be used in any kind of mostly all type of hardwares, operating systems, and applications. So it is providing a standardized way to represent text and data in a format that can be used across the platforms. So it is similar to HTML. XML also is a very similar to HTML because both are based upon the HTML language. So both the HTML as well as the XML are based upon the HTML language, the standard generalized markup language. So which so if you are comfortable, if you know HTML, it is easy for you to use XML. So what are the two major differences between two? Separation of form and content. So HTML uses tags to define the appearance of text, while XML tags define the structure and content of the data. So HTML generally defines the appearance of the text, means how the text is supposed to be appeared, whereas XML tags defines the structure, how or in what way the data should be structured and it is to be displayed, and what is the data actually means. How data should be structured is defined by XML, as well as what type of data should be displayed, it is defined by the XML. So individual applications will be specified by the application or associated style sheets. So each individual applications will be specified by an application or associated style sheet. So there will be a style sheet associated with each application. According to that, the data is displayed. And XML is actually extensible. The tags can be defined by the developer for specific application, while HTML tags are defined by the W3C. So another very beneficial thing here regarding the XML is you can define your own tags. Whereas in HTML, already predefined tags are there. You can use only those tags. But here, in case of XML, you can define your own tags, and then you can start using means you can use your own tags. So it makes database use much easier for your organization. The another advantage of XML is you can easily use the database. It makes us easier to use the database. So relational databases systems cannot meet all the demands of electronic business because they process data independently from its context. Means relational databases. If you are using the relational databases, they cannot meet all the demands of electronic business because some contents cannot be put up in the relational databases. Whereas in case of this XML, XML databases smooth out this process because they store XML nativity in a structured hierarchical form. Means in general relational databases they are not much rich in handling the audio, videos, or nested data structures. So we cannot handle it in case of relational databases. Whereas in case of XML, we can use it. We can store any kind of data in a structured hierarchical form there. So we can write the queries. There has resolved much more quickly because there is no need to map the XML data tree to relational database table. So no need of mapping here. So that's the reason why queries are also generally answered very quickly. So what are the other benefits of XML here? So it is a self-describing data. XML does not require relational schemata. So no need of any relational schemata in case of XML. It is the self-describing data. So no need of any file description tables, external data definitions, and so forth. So also, while HTML also ensures the correct representation of data, XML also guarantees that data is usable. So XML, actually HTML is just used to present a data. Whatever we say, it is going to present it. But here also we can use the data which is presented here. Using XML, whatever the data is presented, that can also be used. Again, database integration. XML documents can contain any type of data, from text to numbers to multimedia objects to active formats like Java. So any type of objects, videos, audios, graphics, whatever be the kind of data, all can be stored in case of HTML documents. Sorry, XML document. In no programming, reprogramming if modifications are made, means the documents and websites can be changed with XSL style sheets without having to reprogram the data. No need of reprogramming the data. Simply what you can do here is you can use the XSL style sheets. So these are all the contents. We are not actually here learning XML. Just we are highlighting the whatever. Mm, the advantages, whatever the benefits this XML is going to provide. So one server view of data. So XML is exceptionally ideal for cloud computing because data spread across multiple servers looks as if it is stored on a one server. So if you're using XML, it is ideal because you can actually think that mm, of course in case of cloud computing the data is dispersed, it is stored on several servers, but at using XML you can assume that you can have an illusion that all the data is stored at in one server. Okay, and open and extensible. XML structure allows you to add other elements if you need them. You can easily adapt your system as your business changes. Means other elements can be easily attached in case of XML. Uh, uh, and also you can adapt your system as per your business. It means as per the business changes, what we can do here, you can add up whatever is required. Then also future proof. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, has endorsed XML as an industry standard. So they have actually endorsed the XML as an industry standard, and it is supported by all leading software providers. And it is already become an industry standard in the fields of healthcare. So in healthcare, compulsory the XML is been followed. So because it has been endorsed by your W3 consortium, so it is acceptable by all the industries, and also it contains machine readable context information. So tags, attributes, and element structures provide the context for interpreting the meaning of the content. Means you can have the tags which are interpreted by the machine. So easily they are being interpreted the meaning of content, which opens us the possibilities for development. Then context versus representation. XML tags describe the meaning of the object, not its representation. So XML tags describe the meaning of the object, not the represent. Means here we are not mainly concentrating on the representation. We are just mainly concentrate on the content. The content, we are very much bothered about the content here, not the presentation, because the presentation, everything has been taken care by your HTML. So that is, the XML describes the look and feel of a document. The application presents it as described. Next, the other web services. As we just said, the web services describe how data is transferred from the cloud to the client. Means how the data is transferred from the cloud to the client is defined by these web services. Okay. We have discussed earlier about the REST and SO. Means those words have been used in case of previous chapters. But let us now understand more about the REST and SOAP. So REST, the representational state transfer, is the way of getting information content from website by reading a designated web page that contains XML file that describes and includes the desired format. Means here REST is actually the way, means how you are going to get the information from a web page, how website, how you are going to get an information. And by reading the designated web page, so you are going to read whatever the web page is required, which contains the XML file that describes and includes the desired content. Means as we have just discussed that the XML contains desired content, this REST, the representational state transfer, will tell how you are going to get that information from that website, uh, uh, more particularly the web page, so which contains XML. So it means, for instance, here an example is given that REST can be used by your cloud provider to provide updated subscription information. So REST is providing you the updated subscription information, for instance. So even so, often the provider could prepare a web page that includes the content and XML statements that describe in the code. Subscribers only need to know the uniform resource locator for the web page where the XML file is located, read it with the web browser, understand the content of using XML information, display it appropriately. Now here, if you want to have the subscription information, for example, it is telling your cloud provider is used by the cloud provider to provide you the updated subscription information. So what you need to know is just XML. What you need to know here is just only the uniform resource locator, your URL, and if you click on that URL, the updated information will be prepared, and that information is displayed appropriately on the screen. Okay, the client sends a request to the web server information using the same URL. The website has updated its content and uses REST to send that information back to the clients. Means here the clients are sending the request using the same URL, and as per this subscription, so the individual clients are going to get their information. And what else here is REST was developed by a PhD dissertation. Means it is developed by from Roy Fielding, and he calls it as an architectural style. He says that REST, the REST exploits existing technologies and protocols for web, including HTML. Means it is going to exploit the HTTP and as well as XML. And it is similar to SOAP. The next one which we are going to discuss is simple access protocol, object access protocol. But it is easier to use. So REST, when compared to SOAP, is very easier to use. For instance, if you want to provide a syndicated content from your cloud to subscribing websites, so means if you want to have a combined information, the content to be provided from your cloud to the subscribing websites, those subscribers might need to use SOAP, which allows greater program interaction between the client and server. Means if you are using the SOAP, you need to require to write, requires the writing and using the data server program. Means you need to write both the server program and the client program to request for the data. Then it allows the program interaction between the client and server. REST uses the same publishing approach that many websites use in RDF site summary. So RDF, in the sense, resource description framework. So which is a standard way to describe a website. Means if you want to describe a website, if you want to know about a website, the REST use the publishing information. So here, an important component of REST is an existence of resources. So one of the component of REST is the existence of resources. The resources are the sources of specific information, and each one is referred by a global identifier like a URL in HTTP. So if you are having several number of resources here, each resource is actually identified by a particular URL. So to manipulate these resources, network components communicate via standard HTTP and exchange the representation of these resources. Means to manipulate the resources, network components communicate via standard interface. Okay, and then you are going to get an exchange, means the information is being exchanged. Now, see, for example, for instance, it is said that a resource which is a triangle might be described as a polygon with three sides of equal length. It may also combine 3 points that are connected in a comma separated list. So means if you want to describe a resource here, so if you want to describe a triangle, you can say that it is a polygon with three sides of equal length, or it may also combine 3 points that are connected in a comma separated list. Means if suppose 3 points are there, you are going to combine them, then they are going to, then it becomes a figure. So likewise, you can means it's just an example which is given here, which can be used to describe an information. So REST has its own benefits. So it gives a better response time and reduced server load due to its support for the catching of representations. Because it supports the catching, as you know that when you're using catching, already frequently visit pages will be frequently visited information will be stored in a cache, and when it is requested, instead of again loading it from the server, it is displayed from the cache. So this reduces the response time. Means again sending a request and getting back a response, it can be avoided. And server scalability is improved by reducing the need to maintain the session state, because again, see, when it is served using the caching, no need of maintaining a session state here, and because of that, the server scalability can also be improved. A single browser can access any application and any resource. So a single browser can access any application and any resource. So less client-side software needs to be written. Means no need of any client. We can't say that no need, but here only less client-side software is needed because any single browser can access it. A separate resource discovery mechanism is not needed due to the use of hyperlinks in a representation. Because you are using hyperlinks here, no need of any separate discovery mechanism to be used. And it is a long-term compatible and availability characteristics. It has a better long-term compatibility and availability characteristics exist than in RPC, the remote procedural calls. Okay, this is due to the availability of documents like HTML to evolve both forward and backward compatibility. So they have the both forward and backward compatibility. Forward in the sense the next versions can also be used in this, and the backward means the previously produced pages can also be used in the current versions. Okay. Next, resources can add support to the new content types. Means whenever you add a new content types, the resources supports them without eliminating the support for the older content types. Means no need, the older content types are not being what I can say means if new thing has been developed, it supports both the older one as well as the newer one. Next, we have the SOAP. The next type of standard, the web service standard, is an SOAP. So which is a simple object access protocol for running, is a way for a program running in one kind of operating system to communicate with a program in the same or another kind of operating system by using HTTP and XML. So if you are using different types of operating system or the same type of operating system, and that you want to communicate with each other, then SOAP is a good tool. So because it uses HTTP and XML as the tools for exchange of information. So it has a procedural call, means often we know about the RPC, remote procedural call. Remote procedure call, as I said earlier, also a remote in the sense the one which is far away from us, which is not near to us, which is something which is far away to us. So on a remote machine, some procedure is there, and you need to invoke that procedure. So on another machine it is residing, and you are going to invoke it. So this actually the RPC, in the sense a remote, you know how to invoke that particular procedure or function which is residing on some other machine. So often the remote procedure calls used are used between the objects like DCOM and or Corba, but HTTP was not designed for user. Means generally the RPC use the between the objects like, means RPC uses a dynamic component object modeling or the Corba, but HTTP was designed for this use. RPC is compatibility problem because firewall and proxy servers will block this type of traffic. Means if you're using RPC, there is a chance that it may be blocked due to some proxy servers or due to the firewalls. And because of the web protocols already are installed and available, but the major operating system HTTP and XML provide an easy solution to the problem of how program running under different operating system in network can communicate with each other. So if you're using a HTTP and XML, so they provide an easy solution to the problem of how programs running under different operating systems. Means if the programs are running on different operating systems, what they can do here is they can communicate with each other using this SOAP. So it described the SOAP describe how exactly to encode an HTTP header and XML file so that the program on one computer can call another program on another computer and pass its information. So how SOAP describes how actually one program, means if suppose some program is written on residing on some other system, so it will tell how actually one program which is residing on one machine can invoke a program on another machine by passing the information. One of the advantages of SOAP is that the program calls are more likely to get through firewalls. Okay, one means the SOAP, if you're using SOAP, they can easily penetrate through the firewalls that are normally screen out requests for those applications. Because HTTP requests are normally allowed through the firewalls, programs using SOAP can communicate the programs anywhere. Means because the HTTP is using SOAP here, so all the programs can easily penetrate to the firewalls and they can invoke any program which is residing in some other place. So this is a sample code which is uh, given here. You can, if you are aware of the XML, you can understand it very well. And finally, see here, for communication, generally we know we need to have some standards, and we actually have discussed about the standards in our
Sir, voice cutting.
and means
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
hello.
Sir, voice break out, sir. No, okay, sir. That background
Standards are extremely important. మనకేంటంటే means standards, we need to follow actually standards these days, and they we take it as a granted. Means when we are sending and receiving the data, generally we follow some certain standards, so we have to follow. See, if you are using it's if you want to email also, you need to generally follow a standard. So it is nothing for us to email a Microsoft documents back and forth except them to work on our computer. But before doc and txt files were standardized, it was uncommon for files created on different computers to be unreadable. Means see here, we are following this .com and .txt also standards. So previously, when there are no standards, it is very difficult for the files which are on different machines. So we cannot read the files created on two different operating systems or two different machines there. So because of this standardization only, we are able to read. Likewise, when you're using the cloud computing, when you're using various applications. If you're using the applications to talk to each other, then we require some certain standards, and those standards are being used nowadays. So that's about the standards. In the next topic, we were supposed to discuss about the software as a service. What type of software as a service means, and the type of service which has been provided. So we will discuss about what is software as service, its overview, its advantages, and who are the vendors which are actually providing us this software as services. So what will be the benefits of that, how the companies are offering various kinds of services to us. We will all discuss in the next chapter. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you. Okay. And one second.
Okay, okay, sir.